The way people lie about the rich is really insane. But because the average person will never actually meet somebody who is rich, you can kind of get away with the lies, because who's going to know? Who's going to tell you that it's not true? So in this video, we're going to talk about just really a stream of consciousness of all the different misconceptions and things that I've heard, and how most of them are completely inaccurate. And don't forget to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. So let's get into it. I think there are so many misconceptions, first and foremost because it helps people cope with their own situations. If you can convince yourself that these people aren't really living much more differently than you are, you don't feel bad about the way that you are living. If you knew just how different and how much easier these people's lives were, like you really knew. Of course, everybody conceptually thinks like, yeah, of course, if you have more money, it's probably easier, it's probably a little more fun. You kind of get that, but you don't truly understand just how deep it goes. And that really kind of protects you, because if you knew how deep it went, truly if you knew, it would be really hard to sit in your current lifestyle that is not that. The gap is just too big. And so what you will often see people do is they'll cherry pick, whether the 2 or 3 rich people that they see on TV all the time, your Bezos, your Zuckerberg, your Bill Gates, whoever, they'll kind of cherry pick at them because that is literally the only wealth that they have ever been spoon-fed that they see, and they try to make assumptions off of that. But even then, they're not actually really thinking about it. They're just making broad generalizations off of seeing like a fraction of the picture. So for example, a lot of people comment on how Mark Zuckerberg dresses. Oh, he dresses really plain. He doesn't wear suits. Mark Zuckerberg's outfits cost thousands of dollars. And of course, you as a regular person looking at him through a camera photo, like a paparazzi photo, you can't tell that it's not a regular outfit. You are not there in person to experience it. You also literally just don't have the knowledge to be able to look at an outfit and suss out that this is not a cheap outfit. But it's very easy for people to do that surface level thinking and just assume that he's wearing the same Old Navy outfit as they are. It's just not the case. It's just not the case. And that also trickles into the idea that, well, wealthy people don't spend money. They're very frugal. They don't do all these flashy and fancy things, which doesn't even logically make sense. Because this same group of people, on one hand, they'll say, oh, the rich are greedy. They're greedy. They're greedy. They always want more money. But then you're also saying they never spend the money. And they're saying, well, they're rich because they never spend money. Are they rich because they never spend money, or are they greedy? Which one is it? Because these two things being the same thing doesn't make sense. And who do you think is buying all of these expensive products? How do you think that Bentley is still in business? How do you think there are enough people to buy these exorbitantly expensive things if rich people don't spend money? It is completely illogical if you think about it for more than 2 minutes, right? And then you also have this group of people who will meet a couple of people, 2 or 3 people who are rich. Sometimes these people are not rich. They're making more than average. They're making more money than that person has ever seen before, but they're not rich. A lot of people feel like making $100,000 a year is rich. Please. I was making $100,000 fresh out of college, bald baby. That's nothing, But because people's idea of wealth, they don't really know what that means, is so skewed, it's really hard for people to differentiate that person that they met at the bar who makes, maybe $200,000 a year from somebody who actually has millions and millions, if not billions of dollars. And even when you think about the upper class, or even just wealth in general, it's a pyramid like everything else. You can barely be upper class, you can be just scraping by, and you can also be at the tippity top. I mean, even my understanding probably taps out around middle of the pyramid. I know for a fact, because of what I've seen, once you start seeing things, you're like, oh, okay. Like, you kind of get an understanding of how much you don't know, and you can tell that there are some other levels and some things that are, out of your range, right? And so you also have that aspect where you might have talked to somebody who was barely scraping the surface, maybe, and even then it was one person. That is not enough to actually understand what is happening in these spaces. So, all of that aside, what is happening in these spaces? Well, a lot of the misconception that, oh, rich people are quiet, like wealth is quiet, luxury is quiet, rich people aren't flashy, is because they don't want you, the commoner, to know what they're doing. Because as soon as you know that they like Birkin bags, now you're rushing out to go and get a Birkin bag or get a fake or whatever. Of course, nobody wants that to happen. They want to, there's a secret code, a secret language, if you will, that the upper class speaks to each other. And it is specifically for the upper class. And a lot of the things that we talk on this channel all tie into that secret language. Clothes are one of them. So again, if we use the Mark Zuckerberg example, anybody who is in proximity with him, right? So you have to somehow be in a position to even be in the same room as him to begin with. Most people are not in that position. When you're in the same room with him, though, you can look at the fabric, you can tell how it's laying on him. There's a lot of other cues that allow you to pick up exactly where he got his clothes from. In fact, I'm sure if you Google it, there are articles talking about where he gets his clothes from. How do you think those people know? Do you think they went and asked him? I mean, maybe. But it's because there are people who have that trained eye who can look at what he's wearing, even if it looks like a basic t-shirt and jeans, and they know, oh, this is, actually, I don't know. I don't check for Mark Zuckerberg, so I don't know what his brand of choice is. But people are able to pick that out, right? So there's nothing quiet about it. To the people who understand that, it's very loud, it's very clear, it's very apparent. Another example is there are logos that are not necessarily logos. Or even things like exotic leathers, that's one of my favorites. You have to already be somebody who is interested in exotic leathers to be able to point out, oh, this is ostrich leather, this is lizard leather, this is whatever. If you had never been exposed to that concept of the fact that people will get things made in all these crazy leathers, you wouldn't know. It's the same as some people genuinely can't look at two fur coats and know which is the fake fur and which is the real fur, because they've never been in an environment where they're used to seeing that over and over again. And so all these little subtle things that indicate how much an item is or where it came from, you only know that if you are already seeing that over and over and over again, and it's easy to recognize those patterns. So that's on the clothing side. Now, when it comes to things like the fancy cars, you always hear people saying, well, the CEO drives a beater. Even if he does, let's assume he does truly just drive beaters. He has no, $1 million car in the garage for fun. Let's assume that's the case. Probably isn't, but let's assume it is. Yeah, some people just don't care about cars. That doesn't mean that they're not spending their money elsewhere. In fact, I guarantee you they're spending their money elsewhere, because again, that's the point of having money. But they're not always spending it on material things that you, average Joe, broke Joe at that you're able to see and know and understand. They're paying a lot of money on experiences and on services. So experiences could be things like, even my grandfather, one of the reasons that I really wanted to get good at golfing was so I could go hang out with him. Because the one place that he went to that I never forgot when I was a child, he went golfing at this course where you had to, I can't remember if you had to fly a jet into it, a private jet, or a helicopter into it. But it is completely inaccessible to the general public. In fact, a lot of people probably don't even know that it exists. That is the type of stuff that they're sinking their money on. And that's all my grandfather does, is go around traveling and playing golf all day, right? That is what they're spending money on. Or it could be things like social clubs. A lot of these dues for country clubs, you could get up into the $100,000 depending on the type of club that it is. You're going on these wellness retreats. That's $100,000 right there. What else? You're going to different philanthropic events where you're expected to shovel out some money. Even just to be there, you have to pay, a couple of $1,000s just to get in the room. This is where all of that money is going. And even when you have something like the Met Gala, people don't recognize that even the celebrities that are there, somebody is paying for them to be there. It's a fundraiser. It's a lot of money that goes into the Met. So these are some of the behind the scenes things that, again, are not tangible things that you would be able to pick up just from talking to somebody, but that's what's happening. Ski resorts, people would just go, you know, head up to Telluride and have a second house in Telluride where they just hang out on the slopes. I mean, it's a long list of things, right? And then on the other hand, you have services. So even when people are going on trips, you think, you know, they're packing their bags, you know, getting ready for the trip. No, they have somebody who does that for them. Or in certain cases, if they're going to another location that they frequent, you know, they just have a whole set of their wardrobe at this other location, so they never have to pack. If they're going to a hotel, they're never touching bags or packing or whatever. Their clothes end up on the plane almost like magic, and they end up in the hotel room like magic. This is what people are spending the money on. And so even when people ask, like, well, why would you want to do all this stuff? Why go through the trouble of learning these things and moving into these spaces? That is what we're talking about when we're saying it is a totally different lifestyle. Most people think of, oh, this person has money, so they're living the same as me, they just have more money. And that is just simply not the case. And I don't really like getting into dating things, but it is similar with dating when people are like having these conversations about dating people who have different income levels. It is much more difficult to date somebody who is making significantly more money than you, or vice versa, than people understand. Because once you start making a certain amount of money, there are a lot of expectations, there are a lot of behaviors that are expected of you at that tax bracket. And if you have never been exposed to that kind of money, you're going to constantly be in a state of discomfort because it is a completely different world. So hopefully that gives you guys a little bit of insight into that and some of the things going on behind the scenes. Let me know if there are any other topics you want me to cover down in the comments. Of course, do the likes, the shares, the subscribes, whatever. And I will see you guys on the next video.